All right, here we go. Today is the 15th day of the individuation process for the month of October. And specifically, what's interesting about this day is that we're pretty much halfway through this entire process, right? Of course, with October, you have 31 days, so it's kind of uneven. But, here we are, pretty much halfway through, and I would argue probably the second most, or one of the, that doesn't really make sense. I would say the second most important question you could ask yourself to ask today is, am I happy with who I am? Right? Now, I'm sure that that's probably a question that everyone at some point subconsciously asks themselves. And when I say subconsciously, I mean there's probably a voice in the back of the head that's like, ask the question, like it really wants to get there. In some cases, it's probably screaming at the self, right? Fulfillment is absolutely necessary as foundational to the human experience, right? Fulfillment, meaning, joy, all that stuff. And I would argue that a lot of people are actually not happy, right? And the reason why I'm presenting this question for people to ask themselves is because of that. I think that, we have this kind of like escapism idea of life, right? The problems, they surface, they present themselves, and then we're just like, right? And then, we go about our day and we tune into what we tune into as we do, as needed, very oftentimes to tune out, right? The second part of this question is very important because it has to do with the self, right? And the thing that's interesting about the second part of the question is that it has to do with the internal rather than the external. So the first question is, of course, like I was saying before, am I happy with who I am, right? Now, if not, by the way, the only thing that's going to help you is if you're honest with yourself, right? Like, if you spent the last, the last decade or 2 decades or 3 decades or 4, however long it was, that you convinced yourself that you are happy with who you are, right? If you're going to be dishonest with yourself, this is not going to work. So you need to be honest with yourself. Am I happy with who I am? If not, what do I need to change about myself to benefit, right? The reason why I ask the question, what would I need to change about myself to benefit, is because a lot of people are like, no, of course I'm not happy with who I am. And it's all their fault. It's all your fault. You need to change. They need to change. That needs to change. That over there needs to change. No, that's not how this works. If you are unhappy, if you're unhappy with who you are, you need to change. It's that simple. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like there aren't things going on out in the world that are like, right? It's there, of course, but if you want genuine happiness and fulfillment, if you want to wake up and every day look in the mirror and be like, yes, absolutely, wow, yeah, then you've got to bring every finger that you've pointed at everything else and everyone else back at yourself. Responsibility and accountability. Now, again, as I'm somebody who's trying not to continue telling the story of the past and more so be telling a story of a conscious future that I am creating from a place of elevated emotions and just nothing but good energy, I have plenty of receipts of, I'd like to say that they're just not relevant anymore because they're not, because I don't like recount them. I'm not like, I remember when I was, no, no, that's lame. But what I do have to say is that in the past, I have externalized my shit instead of brought everything back to myself and been like, the thing that's easy for people to do is to point the finger, right? But then that's the short term. The long term is like, oh wait, this is still me. This is still about me. Right? That's the long term. So the short term is, the relief. The long term is, fuck. And when you take all of your awareness on yourself and you really look at yourself, right? You really genuinely look at yourself. You have the power to consciously be like, okay, so what do I need to do, right? And then that's when everything shifts. Here's the thing. Responsibility and accountability are beautiful fucking things. When you take all of your power back on yourself and you're like, you know what? I need to do something about this. This is not working. And I even remember for myself, like there was a point in my life where I was like, I need to change. As simple as that. I can't keep going down this path the way that I am. I need to change. What do I need to change about myself? Right? And then that's when I got into journaling, meditation, yoga, everything. And then, ultimately, like, it evolved into different things. I started doing cold showers, do that every day, here's the thing. We all have shit. Until we heal that shit recycles itself in the form of patterns. Toxic patterns, unhealthy patterns in our lives that wreak absolute fucking havoc in our own personal lives as well as in our relationships. And when that stuff is not healed, it continues to grow and it continues to wreak havoc and it continues to make us really fucking unhappy. So the answer is, and always has been and always will be, you. You've got the key. Whether you fucking swallowed it and tried to forget about it, whether you fucking threw it out the window while you were driving down the road, whether you tried to flush it down the toilet after shitting it out, you are the key and you have the key. It's you. It always has been and it always will be. So, working with that bit of information, what do you need to change? Maybe what you need to change is you've been holding on to resentment for so long and you realize that the person that you're holding on to resentment towards doesn't even give a fuck. It's not affecting them, And maybe you just need to be like, okay, fine, let's fucking just get process it, feel this shit, and move the fuck on. One of the things here in terms of the individuation process, right? There's this whole thing of conformity, right? Individuation does not deal with conformity. They're not friends. I mean, certain things out there that you, have to do, all right. But for the far majority of it, in general, individuation likes to think for itself. It likes to feel for itself. It likes to be for itself. It likes to differentiate. It likes to be like, okay, that's your shit, not mine. I'm not going to confuse it for mine. That's how you think. That's not how I think. I'm not going to be influenced to think how you think just because you think that I should think how you think, So really, taking all of your energy back on yourself. If you feel like it's really fucking hard to heal, I would probably say that it has to do with you thinking that, that the rest of the world has to change, right? People do this all the time too, like when it comes to goals and everything. Like, oh, okay, I'll start it when I'm ready. You're never going to be ready. You're never going to. The world is never going to change for you. The world does not give a fuck. I'm not here to say that the world is a hostile place, because I don't believe it is. But what I'm going to say is that if you're waiting for the outside to change, for the inside to change, it's the other way around. If you want to change the outside, you have to change the inside. The world is a mirror. That's it. The world is literally, take this mirror, hold it up, and look at it. That's it. Right there. That's it. That's it. And then you see it and you're either like, right? Right? And it's terrifying. Or then maybe at some point you look at it and you're like, And then it changes. But ask yourself, am I happy with who I am? If not, what do I need to change about myself? not the world, myself.